Imagine, just for a moment, that the biggest thing holding you back from real power isn't money, or who you know, or even opportunities. What if it's something much closer, more personal, and perhaps a little uncomfortable to think about? Carl Jung, that brilliant mind who explored the depths of the human psyche, stumbled upon a profound truth. A truth that could completely change how we think about mastering ourselves and achieving success. He found that when you stop giving into your most basic desires, specifically lust, something truly extraordinary starts to happen. It's almost as if the world itself begins to bend to your will. This isn't some mystical idea. It's deep psychology. Jung observed men and women who learned to master their lower desires, and they developed an almost supernatural magnetism, a presence that naturally commanded respect, drew in opportunities, and literally made circumstances align in their favor. But why does this happen? And how can you use this incredible discovery to transform your own life? Get ready for a journey that will challenge everything you thought you knew about power, control, and what you can achieve. For decades, Carl Jung delved into the human psyche, and during that time, he uncovered one of humanity's most closely guarded secrets. While Freud was focused on sexual repression as the root of all our anxieties, Jung went much, much deeper. He realized that sexual energy wasn't just for reproduction or pleasure. It was the very fuel that powered human ambition, creativity, and even our spiritual growth. In his private journals, Jung wrote about what he called the Great Transmutation. This was the process where our sexual energy could be transformed into a pure, creative force. He saw that individuals who learned to redirect these powerful impulses didn't become repressed or neurotic, as Freud might have predicted. Instead, they became powerhouses of accomplishment, charisma, and influence. Jung's major breakthrough came when he noticed a clear pattern among his most successful patients. Those who had truly mastered their sexual urges possessed an almost otherworldly magnetism. They'd walk into a room and conversations would just stop. They'd speak, and people would listen with complete attention. They pursued their goals with an intensity that seemed to actually bend reality to their will. But here's the truly fascinating part. Jung discovered this wasn't about religious celibacy or some moral code. It was about pure energy conservation and redirection. Think of your sexual energy like a powerful river. Most people let this river flow freely, its power spreading out everywhere. But what happens if you build a dam across that river? The water builds up, creating immense pressure and potential energy that can be channeled to power entire cities. Jung called this libidinal transmutation, an alchemical process that converts basic sexual desire into golden, creative power. He found that when people stopped wasting their sexual energy through constant indulgence, something remarkable happened to their entire being. Their voice became more commanding, their presence more magnetic, their ideas more innovative and compelling. The secret wasn't to suppress it, but to sublime it. Jung observed that sexual energy, when properly channeled, became the driving force behind artistic masterpieces, vast business empires, and profound spiritual breakthroughs. The very energy that most people scattered in fleeting pleasure could be accumulated and concentrated into a laser-focused beam of personal power. This discovery completely overturned everything society taught about sexual expression. Jung realized that the modern world's obsession with sexual liberation was actually a form of spiritual and creative enslavement. By constantly dissipating their most powerful energy source, people were unknowingly sabotaging their own potential for greatness. The implications were staggering. Jung began to understand why monks, shamans, and spiritual leaders throughout history practiced celibacy. It wasn't because sex was inherently bad, but because they recognized sexual energy as the raw material for transcendence. They understood that the same force that creates life itself could be redirected to create extraordinary achievements and supernatural levels of personal magnetism. Jung's research revealed that sexual energy operates on multiple levels all at once. On a physical level, it's the biological drive for reproduction. On a psychological level, it's the engine of ambition and achievement. And on a spiritual level, it's the fuel for expanding consciousness and personal transformation. When you stop losing this energy through constant sexual gratification, all three of these levels begin to accumulate power simultaneously. This accumulation creates what Jung called a numinous presence, a quality that makes certain individuals seem larger than life, almost divine in their influence and impact. They become what he called carriers of the transcendent function, people who bridge the gap between ordinary consciousness and extraordinary achievement. The uncomfortable truth Jung uncovered was that society actually discourages this accumulation of power. A population that constantly dissipates its sexual energy is easier to control, more dependent on external validation, and less likely to challenge established power structures. He saw the sexual revolution not as true liberation, but as a form of energetic castration that kept the masses weak and compliant. Jung's discovery explains why certain historical figures had such overwhelming charisma and influence. They had learned, whether consciously or unconsciously, to harness and redirect their sexual energy into their life's work. This wasn't about denying their sexuality. It was about elevating it to serve a higher purpose. Every morning, you wake up with a limited amount of life force, what Jung called psychic energy. This isn't just a metaphor, it's a measurable reality that affects every single part of your daily performance. It impacts your ability to focus, to make decisions, and even your capacity for creativity and leadership. Yet, most people, unknowingly, squander this precious resource before they even realize they possess it. Jung's research showed that sexual energy isn't separate from your overall life force. It's the most concentrated essence of it. When you dissipate sexual energy through frequent indulgence, you're not just experiencing a momentary pleasure. You're literally draining the power source that fuels your ambition, your creativity, and your personal magnetism. It's like having a high-performance sports car and choosing to drain most of the fuel before even attempting to win a race. The modern world has created what Jung would have called a perfect storm of energetic depletion. Everywhere you look, there are triggers designed to activate and drain your sexual energy. Social media feeds full of provocative imagery, entertainment that sexualizes almost everything, and a culture that promotes instant gratification over delayed satisfaction. These aren't accidents. They're systematic ways of keeping your most powerful energy source in a constant state of depletion. Consider the average person's daily routine. They wake up, immediately check their phone, and within minutes are exposed to dozens of subtle sexual triggers. Their brain releases dopamine, their sexual energy activates, and instead of channeling this power toward meaningful goals, they dissipate it through mindless scrolling, fantasy, or immediate gratification. By the time they try to focus on important tasks, their energetic reserves are already compromised. Jung observed that this pattern creates what he called the mediocrity trap. When your life force is constantly leaking through sexual dissipation, you operate at a mere fraction of your true potential. Your ideas lack power, your presence lacks magnetism, and your goals lack the energetic backing needed to make them real. You become part of the masses, energetically depleted, spiritually disconnected, and dependent on outside sources for motivation and validation. The chaos in your mind isn't separate from the chaos in your energy. They're deeply connected. Based on Jung's principles of shadow integration and mental clarity, there's a powerful method called SEM that gets to the root of this mental turbulence. This simple 5-minute daily practice illuminates your mind, integrates your shadow, and creates the inner peace necessary for true energetic mastery. When your mind is clear and integrated, conserving your life force becomes natural, not forced. You can find a complete guide to this transformative method in the first pinned comment below. The tragedy is that most people don't even realize they're being systematically drained. They accept low energy, a lack of motivation, and diminished personal power as normal parts of adult life. They blame their circumstances, their genetics, or their environment for their lack of achievement, never realizing that they're voluntarily bleeding their most precious resource every single day. Jung's analysis went even deeper. He discovered that sexual energy depletion affects not just individual performance, but entire life paths. When you consistently operate from a depleted state, you make different choices. You settle for less in relationships, careers, and personal growth. You become reactive instead of proactive, Following other people's visions instead of creating your own, you lose the energetic intensity needed to pursue extraordinary goals. This energetic depletion also affects your ability to access what Jung called the transcendent function, the bridge between conscious and unconscious awareness that generates breakthrough insights and creative solutions. When your life force is scattered through sexual dissipation, your consciousness becomes fragmented and superficial. You lose access to the deeper wells of wisdom and intuition that could truly transform your life. Jung noticed that individuals who conserved their sexual energy reported dramatic improvements in multiple areas all at once. Their focus became laser-sharp, their creativity exploded, their confidence soared, and their ability to influence others increased exponentially. They started attracting opportunities, relationships, and resources that had seemed impossible to obtain before. This happens because sexual energy conservation creates what Jung called energetic coherence. Instead of your life force being scattered across many points of dissipation, it becomes concentrated and aligned. This concentrated energy creates a powerful magnetic field around your personality that attracts success, respect, and influence. The waste isn't just individual, it's generational. Jung realized that societies that encourage sexual energy dissipation produce generations of energetically depleted individuals who lack the power to create meaningful change or pursue transcendent goals. They become consumers rather than creators, followers rather than leaders, dependent rather than sovereign. The way forward requires recognizing that your sexual energy is your life force in its most concentrated form. Every time you waste it through mindless gratification, you're choosing mediocrity over mastery, weakness over power, and dependency over sovereignty. Jung's research proved that when you stop this waste and begin conserving and redirecting this energy, you don't just improve, you transform into an entirely different kind of human being. The real question isn't whether you can afford to conserve your sexual energy. The question is whether you can afford to keep wasting the very force that could transform your life from ordinary to extraordinary. Jung's discoveries suggest that the choice you make about your sexual energy will determine not just your level of success, but your entire destiny as a human being. Jung understood something that ancient alchemists had known for thousands of years. The process of transformation isn't just a metaphor. It's a literal conversion of raw material into something precious and powerful. In human terms, this means transforming raw sexual impulse into refined creative force, converting animalistic desire into a godlike mastery over one's environment and circumstances. The alchemical process Jung observed begins with what he called the nigredo, the dark night of the soul that happens when you first try to contain your sexual energy. This isn't pleasant. Your body rebels. Your mind invents elaborate reasons why you should go back to old patterns, and society might even tell you that you're repressing yourself. But Jung recognized this discomfort as the absolutely necessary first stage of transformation, like heating raw metals until they begin to break down their existing molecular structure. During this initial phase, most people give up. They interpret the discomfort as proof that they're doing something wrong, something unnatural. They don't understand that this very discomfort is the mechanism of transformation. Jung observed that those who pushed through this dark phase discovered something remarkable. The energy that had previously scattered outward through sexual dissipation began to turn inward, creating intense internal pressure that eventually reorganized their entire psychological structure. The second stage, which Jung called albedo, involves the purification of this concentrated energy. As you continue to contain your sexual force rather than dissipating it, something extraordinary starts to happen. The energy doesn't just accumulate, it transforms. Raw sexual desire becomes refined creative ambition. Basic physical impulses evolve into sophisticated strategic thinking. Animal magnetism transmutes into divine charisma. Jung documented this transformation in case study after case study. Patients who had been scattered and focused and powerless gradually developed laser-like concentration and wavering determination, and an almost supernatural ability to influence others. They didn't just gain willpower, they fundamentally altered their relationship with reality itself. The key insight Jung discovered was that sexual energy acts as what he called prima materia of the primary substance from which all higher human capacities are built. When you constantly release this energy through sexual gratification, you are literally preventing the construction of your higher self. You remain trapped in the basement of human potential, never accessing the upper floors of consciousness that hold your real power. The third stage, citronitis, involves the yellowing or awakening phase, where the transformed energy begins to show tangible results in the external world. Jung observed that individuals who had successfully transmuted their sexual energy started attracting opportunities that had previously been invisible to them. Their enhanced presence opened doors that had been closed. Their concentrated focus generated insights that solved problems others couldn't even comprehend. But the transformation goes deeper than just external success. Jung found that sexual energy conservation creates what he called psychological gold, a state of consciousness characterized by unshakable confidence, natural leadership ability, and an almost magnetic attraction that pulls people, resources, and opportunities into one's orbit. This isn't arrogance or manipulation. It's the natural result of operating from a more concentrated and refined energetic frequency. The final stage, rubedo, represents the reddening or completion of the alchemical process. At this level, the individual has become what Jung termed a master of reality. They don't just navigate circumstances, they actively shape them. Their concentrated will becomes a force that literally bends probability in their favor. What others call luck, they recognize as the natural result of operating from a transformed energetic state. Jung's clinical observations showed that this transformation follows predictable patterns. First, physical vitality increases dramatically. Sleep becomes more restful, energy levels stabilize, and the body develops what he called luminous health. Second, mental faculties sharpen exponentially. Memory improves, creativity explodes, and problem-solving abilities reach unprecedented levels. Third, emotional mastery develops naturally. The turbulent emotional patterns that define most people's lives give way to profound inner stability and unshakable peace. The most remarkable aspect of this alchemical transformation is its effect on personal magnetism. Jung documented how individuals who had successfully transmuted their sexual energy developed an almost supernatural ability to influence others. People sought their advice, followed their leadership, and felt inexplicably drawn to their presence. This wasn't the result of manipulation or technique. It was the natural radiation of concentrated life force. The transformation also affects perception itself. Jung found that individuals operating from transmuted sexual energy literally see opportunities and possibilities that remain invisible to others. Their enhanced consciousness allows them to perceive patterns, connections, and potentials that escape ordinary awareness. They begin to operate from what Jung called the transcendent function, a bridge between conscious and unconscious knowledge that generates breakthrough insights and revolutionary solutions. Perhaps most importantly, Jung discovered that this alchemical transformation is irreversible once completed. Unlike temporary improvements that fade over time, the conversion of sexual energy into personal power creates permanent, structural changes in consciousness. The individual doesn't just feel more powerful, they become more powerful, operating from a fundamentally different energetic frequency that continues to attract success, influence, and achievement throughout their lifetime. The journey from being a slave to your desires to becoming a master of reality isn't comfortable. But Jung's research proved it's the only path to accessing your full human potential. Every moment you choose to conserve and transmute your sexual energy, you're participating in the same alchemical process that created history's most influential and powerful individuals. There's something undeniably different about people who have learned to master their sexual impulses. You feel at the moment they walk into a room a presence that commands attention without demanding it, an energy that draws you in without any obvious effort on their part. Jung spent years studying this phenomenon, trying to understand what creates this almost supernatural magnetism that seems to radiate from individuals who have achieved sexual mastery. Jung's breakthrough came when he realized that sexual energy doesn't just disappear when it's not released, it transforms into what he called concentrated presence. Think of sexual energy as raw electricity flowing through your system. When you constantly discharge this electricity through sexual gratification, you operate like a device with a weak, inconsistent power supply. But when you learn to contain and concentrate this energy, you become like a powerful generator, radiating a field that others can sense even when you're not speaking or moving. This magnetism isn't psychological, it's bioenergetic. Jung discovered that individuals who conserve their sexual energy literally emit a different frequency that affects the nervous systems of people around them. When you're in the presence of someone with concentrated sexual energy, your own nervous system responds by becoming more alert, more focused, and more receptive to their influence. It's not conscious, it happens at the level of pure biological response. The effect is most noticeable in social and professional situations. Jung observed that sexually mastered individuals possess what he termed effortless authority. They don't need to raise their voice to be heard, they don't need credentials to be respected, and they don't need to argue to be persuasive. Their concentrated energy creates a gravitational field that naturally draws others into their orbit and makes their words carry unusual weight and impact. This phenomenon explains why certain historical figures had such extraordinary influence despite lacking obvious advantages. They had learned, whether consciously or unconsciously, to concentrate their sexual energy into pure personal magnetism. Their presence became their greatest asset, more powerful than wealth, connections, or even intelligence in determining their success and impact. Jung documented how this magnetism affects different aspects of human interaction. In business negotiations, sexually mastered individuals find that others are more willing to accommodate their requests, more eager to form partnerships, and more likely to offer favorable terms. The concentrated energy creates what Jung called unconscious submission, a tendency for others to defer to their judgment and leadership without understanding why. In romantic relationships, the effect is even more dramatic. Contrary to what you might expect, individuals who have mastered their sexual impulses become far more attractive to potential partners. The concentrated sexual energy creates an aura of mystery and power that triggers deep biological attraction responses. Jung found that sexually mastered individuals reported higher quality relationships, more devoted partners, and deeper emotional connections than those who freely dissipated their sexual energy. This magnetism also affects professional advancement in profound ways. Jung observed that sexually mastered individuals advance more rapidly in their careers, not necessarily because they're more qualified, but because their concentrated presence makes others want to promote them, mentor them, and include them in important opportunities. Decision-makers feel instinctively drawn to support individuals who radiate this concentrated energy. Jung's research revealed that this magnetism operates through multiple channels simultaneously. On the visual level, sexually mastered individuals develop what he called luminous eyes, a quality of gaze that seems to look through surface appearances directly into the essence of situations and people. Their eye contact becomes more penetrating, more memorable, and more impactful than ordinary social interaction. On the vocal level, their speech patterns change dramatically. The voice becomes more resonant, more measured, and more compelling. Jung noticed that sexually mastered individuals naturally develop what ancient texts call the voice of authority, a quality of speech that makes others stop what they're doing and listen carefully. Their words carry unusual weight because they're backed by concentrated life force. On the energetic level, the effect is most profound. Jung discovered that sexually mastered individuals emit what he termed presence radiation, an invisible field that affects the emotional and mental states of everyone within their proximity. People feel more alive, more focused, and more inspired when in their presence. Conversations become more meaningful, decisions become clearer, and possibilities that seemed impossible suddenly appear achievable. This magnetism also creates what Jung called the attraction paradox. The less sexually mastered individuals chase external validation and attention, the more naturally they attract both. Their concentrated energy makes them inherently interesting and valuable to others, creating a cycle where opportunities, relationships, and resources flow toward them with minimal effort on their part. Perhaps most remarkably, Jung found that this magnetism compounds over time. The longer an individual maintains sexual mastery, the more powerful their presence becomes, unlike external advantages that can be lost or taken away. This concentrated magnetism becomes a permanent part of their being, growing stronger and more influential with each passing year. Jung's clinical observations revealed that sexually mastered individuals literally reshape the social dynamics of every environment they enter. Conversations revolve around them naturally. Groups look to them for leadership instinctively. Problems are brought to them for solutions automatically. They become what Jung called natural centers of influence without seeking or demanding such positions. This irresistible magnetism isn't manipulation or technique. It's the natural result of operating from a concentrated energetic state that others unconsciously recognize as superior and attractive. Jung proved that when you master your sexual impulses, you don't just gain self-control, you gain the ability to influence and attract others in ways that seem almost magical, but are actually the predictable result of concentrated life force expressing itself through human personality.